If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program about the services of our Williamson County Animal Center. I'm Debbie Sims and I'll be your host today. I'm the public information person over at the shelter, and my special guest today will be Mark Basenberg. Hey Mark.
Good morning, Debbie.
Mark's been here before, and he is our volunteer coordinator and community relations coordinator at the shelter. What does that really encompass, Mark? Tell us kind of what you do every day at the shelter.
I'd say most of my time is taken up with the volunteer program. I do some of the social media stuff, as you know, but it seems like most of my time, the great majority of my time involves working with the volunteers and visiting. I do quite a few off-site visits, like to assisted living facilities, take a dog to visit an assisted living facility. We do that about once a week now, and that's a lot of fun for everybody, I think.
Oh, I'm sure people love it. And so, some of those centers actually allow pets for some of their residents, I think. Small
some do.
Pets. Yeah.
Yep, some do.
And the ones that don't, the people just love the interaction with the dog. Now, when you came on board in 2012, what were the numbers of volunteers that were actually doing things at the shelter?
You know, it's changed so much. Back then, because I still have some of the old sign-in sheets that we have, and as you know, I was a volunteer myself in the first part of 2012. But we would typically have 8, 10, 12 volunteers come to the shelter in a day and work. And you know, now we probably average 35 to 40 every day.
Wow.
You know, a lot of things have changed. I think at that time we did not have, the volunteers didn't have access to the building on Sunday, for example, and the shelter was closed. So the dogs didn't get walked and the cats didn't get played with on Sunday. So that has all changed now. We're open 365 days a year to our volunteers within certain hours. So, you know, we've just tried to make everything a lot more accessible and open to the volunteers, and you know, it's just great for the dogs and cats. We all benefit.
You keep a lot of statistics, I know, and you said 35 to 40 people a day. They're not necessarily the same people, though there are kind of a core of cat volunteers and a core of dog volunteers.
Right.
But what kind of statistics do you have that you could share now to contrast back how the program's grown?
I can tell you that as recently as within the last year, we've shown about a 40% increase in volunteer hours, in the number of volunteers. For example, in the month of August, we had 303 different volunteers come in, actually sign into the building and work with the animals. 303. The total hours they worked was about 2,500 almost.
Wow.
So if you think about it, that translates into about 14, 15 full-time employees equivalent of that number of hours. We only have 25 employees at the shelter, so you can see what a significant role that the volunteers play.
Well, yeah, they provide the things that our staff can't possibly provide in the 8 hours a day that we're there.
Exactly.
Which is a lot of social interaction for the animals, which is critical to them being adopted. And that brings it to what do volunteers do at the shelter? Let's start with cats, because when you came on board, there really wasn't a cat volunteer program.
Not really. I mean, there were just a handful of people, and you know, that's on us because we didn't really have anything for them to do at that time. We basically had, like most shelters, you know, we kind of had rows of cages. It was very difficult to interact with the cats. It's just so much better now that we have the free roaming room, the per palace, so that's a much more fun thing for people to come in and do. I used to talk to the orientation classes, and I would say, if you think you're going to come in here and you're going to sit on the floor and you're going to just play with cats and they're going to crawl on you and all that stuff, you're in the wrong place. Well, now that's part of what they can do. They can come in and sit on the floor and let cats crawl on them, and you know, that's fun for them. It makes the cats so much more adoptable.
Right. But they also become ambassadors by being there, the very presence.
They know our cat volunteers know the cats and even the kittens so well, especially the cats. They're fabulous at working with the potential adopters, because you come in, for example, one day and say, you know, I'm kind of looking for a kitty for my house. Well, you know, we have an application where we kind of find out a little about their environment, and then that's done by the greeters, which is another volunteer position. And then the cat volunteers take over from that point, and they know the cats so well, and they work with the people. It's you know, it's great. It's great to see.
It's amazing, and they are aware of the personalities. And when you go in Per Palace, there could be up to 25 adult cats in that room. They're usually all adults, at least a year old.
Yes.
And if people haven't seen it, it's hard to describe what a free roaming cat room is, but it is amazing to see cats climbing up on recycled drawers that have been attached to the wall, playing on inside of old computer monitors that have been painted bright colors, going across bridges. So the cats are more in their natural habitat.
They are, and the cats seem to have fun. Some of them are going to be, they're like people. Some of them are introverted, and they're going to just let me sit in my cubby here and leave me alone. That's okay. And then the others they'll just play chase and chase balls and.
But it's easy to see the cat's personality.
Exactly.
If you just walked up to a row of kennels and saw some cats, you really first you wouldn't be able to interact directly unless you took the cat out. And then where are you going to go? You're going to go in a small room at the shelter with one cat and try to play with it. The free roaming cat room is so amazing to me. Sometimes we have a board there, I know, where we list the names of the cats, their coloring, their personality, and the volunteers know them pretty well, but
they do.
Sometimes they have to actually check for their chip to find out their name. That's funny.
Some of them do kind of look alike.
Yeah, there were 3 black cats in there one day, and but they were moving so fast we were trying to figure out which one was which was kind of fun. But there is actually a whole diagram or a sign on the wall of everything the cat volunteers do, and they play with the cats, but they also check the cats, report if a cat's got a runny nose or a sneeze or whatever, and they're critical to the adoption process and the health of the animals as well.
Absolutely.
And I think we didn't even have a procedure for how to be in the cat room, what you need to do.
We didn't back in the old days, you know, and you know, I think our veterinarian, Dr. Birch, has been with us now for, I guess, 2 or 3 years. You know, she's a real cat person, and she treats things more aggressively, let's say, and you know, all the things we're doing. I mean, you know, our save rate so far, you know, throughout the summer, we've been averaging about 97% overall between cats and dogs. That's our live save rate. I think we'll finish the year at about 96%. Would be my thought. So, which is up 1% from last year, and it's still kind of amazing for an open admission municipal shelter to be able to do those kind of numbers. But a large part of it is the improvement in the cat program and keeping them healthier, you know, treating them versus euthanizing when they do get sick, and you know, it's been
so we haven't so by treating them that way, we haven't had a massive outbreak of any kind of contagious illness, or so to speak.
We haven't. We've been able to keep it under control really well. You know, now, for example, when groups of you know, 10-year-old Girl Scouts want to tour the building, we're more than happy to give them a tour and walk them through, but we do control it a lot more. For example, I don't take them into the kitten room because, let's face it, you can't expect them to not stick their hands in the cages. And if you stick your hand in one cage and that cat or kitten has upper respiratory, then they stick it in another cage, and on down the road, then pretty soon you've got a room full of sick kittens.
Kittens are an annual issue. Too many kittens exist, and people just need to spay and neuter their animals, but not everybody does, and we end up with a huge influx. And this year it has gone from June till through September, mid-October.
Yes.
Why do we have any clue every year as to why it's worse at some? I mean, if we did, I guess we could cure the problem. But
I wish we did. Yeah, it's very, to be honest, it's very, very hard on the staff of the shelter. We just get overwhelmed. Every single room, as you know, in that building, that old building of ours, every single room, it seems like, has some form of cat in it. You know, we've got some cages, we've got some crates, we've got. I mean, we averaged 300 a month, and almost all those were kittens. You know, throughout the summer months.
And some are still
it's overwhelming.
Some have been fostered because they were too little,
Yeah.
didn't have a mother, and were too little to be adopted, and they're still coming back at the age of adoption. So we still have a lot of kittens.
Still have a lot of kittens.
Yeah, I'm glad people have lots of choices, but it's a chore, a massive chore to get them adopted, and we couldn't do it without all the foster.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we've got probably 75 different people that foster for us. Most of the fosters that we need, we get a lot of people that want to, say, can I foster a puppy? Well, no, because puppies, they come and go so quickly.
Right.
Where we really need the help is with kittens that are too young to be adopted, or with even adult cats that maybe aren't doing well because of stress in the shelter or something like that, and they can spend a couple of weeks outside the shelter in a home. It helps them.
And fostering is another way of volunteering your time.
It's a very important part of it. And we stress that in our orientation classes. If you just don't have the time to drive, or maybe it's inconvenient, maybe you live in Nolensville or Spring Hill or something, and it's a kind of a hardship to drive all the way into the shelter and do something, think about fostering, because that's critically important.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and like you said, every year in the summer, so many kittens come in that we have to have. Sometimes 100 kittens are out in foster, and we know they're coming back. So we have to push the adoptions within the shelter.
Right.
So sometimes we even adopt a kitten, get a second one for a playmate, and do want to emphasize the adoption process you referred to earlier. It always applies whether the fee exists or whether the fee is underwritten or paid by a person who wants to support the shelter.
Right.
People go through the same adoption process, don't they?
They do. We ask people get worried when they hear kittens are free. We say fees are waived, but it's semantics. People start talking about free kittens, and then they start thinking, well, are they really going to a good home? We can't guarantee that they're going to a good home ever. I mean, no matter what, but we do go through exactly the same interview process with people, and none of that changes. We still go through the same process.
We meet the adopter. We vet the adopter by asking for residency, proof of tenancy. If they're a renter, we call their landlords. So it's very hard to pull the wool over our eyes, and people need to be reassured that it is as safe as it could be. And,
it is.
And any time we have any doubts, we don't allow the adoption. We deny people. And,
sure we do.
Sometimes we require an officer to do a home visit to make sure if there's anything odd, like they think they're going to get a fence, but they don't have a fence. Then we might say, well, this dog really needs a place to run. So when you get your fence done, we'll come make sure, because we want the best outcome for every animal. And it's a difficult, adoption's not just walk in the door, pick out an animal and walk out the door.
It's not.
No, people are there for an hour or longer.
Yes.
Hopefully longer, especially with a dog. A dog impacts a family in a different way than we've been talking about cats. And you alluded to the volunteer orientation classes, and you now have a class for people who want to work with cats. Come one night or one Saturday for and you have a monthly.
Every month.
Yeah, and then you have another one for dogs.
Right. Each month we have one dog class, one cat class.
We talked a little about what cat volunteers do. So what do dog volunteers typically do?
Typically, they walk dogs, typically. And we have all of our volunteers, when they come in, the new volunteers start out at one apron color. It's red, is the sort of the entry level. No matter your age or your experience or whatever, everybody starts out at red. And then there's a progression process that you move through based on length of time that you're a volunteer and the number of hours you're putting in, and then your kind of an assessment of your dog skills, your savviness. Are you capable of handling the bigger, stronger dogs? And then we've got an intermediate level of called black apron. Then we've got the green apron level, which is our lead volunteer group. The same applies for dogs and cats. That's our lead volunteer group. They're the most experienced, and they're willing to take a leadership role and do training of the new volunteers and all that stuff. So
after the orientation class, all the volunteers come back for a hands-on training period.
Correct. It's a two-step process. Everybody must attend an orientation. The main purpose of the orientation is to give people an accurate description of what the volunteer job entails. Plus, we feel like it's really important, if you're going to come volunteer for us, we want you to know who we are, what we're about, what our organization is like, how we're funded, kind of what they can expect, and set the stage
How
for
old
that.
do you have to be a volunteer?
You have to be 14 to be considered to be a full volunteer. 14. Now, if you're younger than that, a child younger than that, can attend, come to the shelter and sort of be an apprentice with a parent who's a trained volunteer. So not just a parent. Parent can't walk in off the street and walk a dog or play with the cats. They have to go through our training program and become a volunteer themselves. Then the child, if younger than 14, can come with them and be their assistant.
Now, other than walking dogs, the dog volunteers also do some other things. Sometimes they come out to our events outside the shelter and bring a favorite animal, a favorite dog, and advocate for it. We call them ambassadors. They or they take a dog home for the weekend.
Yeah.
And maybe find a home.
Yeah, we call them sleepovers. They can sign them out for sleepovers. You know, when dogs need a bath, we have a professional grooming station. They can come in there and you know, bathe the dogs, and that's kind of fun.
And we have people who greet at the shelter and explain the adoption process. And then if people are interested, some of our volunteers actually fill out the adoption forms.
Correct.
And we recently trained them and specifically on how to ask the right questions, how to fill out that form and get to the root of what the person really wants for their family. So that's an important part. Some of our volunteers actually take photos of the dogs and keep up the Pet Finder site, don't they?
Yeah, we've gotten several volunteers, 2 or 3 really new to the process that are help keep up our Pet Finder site, which is really important because so many people are going to shop online before they want to physically come into the shelter. And, you know, there's different reasons for that. They're checking multiple shelters, I guess, and then some people, quite frankly, they're uncomfortable in coming into a shelter because they feel like it's going to be a sad place. So that's hard for us because we continually fight that image. We are absolutely not a sad place. We're a place of hope. We drive that message as much as we can. But, you know, some people, they worry about, well, it's going to be too sad for them. They feel like they got to save them all. And I understand that. But we're so lucky that we have so many volunteers that our dogs get out of those kennels so much. And, you know, they play in groups together once we've kind of safety checked everything. Our volunteers are great at doing the play groups. It's mostly the bigger dogs, but I've seen as many as, I believe, 10 or 11 is kind of our record in the dog run, where you've got dogs just playing like, you know, having so much fun in our big green dog run there.
Yeah, if people have been over there, that's kind of out the side of the shelter. There's a large green run near the public dog park, which we don't go into.
Correct.
But it's a run just for our animals and our dogs. And if it's muddy or grassy or dusty, they don't care.
They don't care.
They do. The big dogs especially need that because they need to stretch their legs and become more assimilated to being around other animals, so they can be adopted into homes that already have animals. And let's talk about what happens when somebody comes in and says, "Oh, we want a second dog. We've got a black lab at home, and we want a companion, or our other kids want another dog." What do you say? In
many cases, we're going to require that they bring their dog into the shelter and do a what we call a meet and greet.
A meet and greet.
Okay. Meet and greet. And we're pretty good at introducing the dogs properly. You don't go nose to nose immediately. You know, you walk parallel, and so anyway, we know how to do the proper walk. It's not foolproof, but it gives you a really good indication, because sometimes you can figure out right away that the incumbent dog is saying, "No way, I'm letting this guy in my house." You know, so
and best to find that out at the shelter before you take the dog home.
Yes.
And we try to educate people, and we do have some tips for all our dog adopters they can take home on how do you introduce a pet. How do you do it by putting one in one room and one in the other, and let them get to see each other first. So like you said, it could cause mayhem if you don't listen to what we're our advice.
Yes. Yes.
And it's important with children that people have never had a dog before. Maybe our volunteers are well versed in how does a toddler approach a large dog safely, and the best way to do that.
Right.
And it's not by poking them in the eye. That will not end well.
Yeah.
Simply because the dog will be defensive. But I think people can rely on our shelter for aftercare, so to speak.
Right.
That we do everything we can to make the adoption work before it happens. And then if there are any problems afterwards, we have resources to steer them toward.
Our volunteers themselves are a great resource, and we don't necessarily encourage them to do this, but they are so passionate that we've got a lot of our volunteers, cat and dog volunteers, they give out their phone numbers and email addresses to these people because they care. They've gotten so involved with the dog or the cat, and it's so important to them that it be in a good home that they really want it to work, and they say, look, if you have any trouble, call me. And they have they have groups where they text each other, and they go the extra mile to make things work if they can. And
one of the best things is the after story, is to get a picture 6 months later from an adopter who says, look at this is our dog, we thank you for helping us with the adoption, it's laying on the floor with their kids, and it just makes everybody feel good.
It's the best. I mean, it's just wonderful. We love the feedback like that. Yeah,
and sometimes our volunteers run across adopted dogs out in the community, and they come back and go, I saw so-and-so the other day, and he or she's doing great.
Yeah, we love that.
Now, we also have volunteers that work to place dogs in other parts of the country. How does that work? I read the other day, there was a picture of a dog on its journey from here somewhere in the north.
Cincinnati, right?
Cincinnati.
The deaf dog.
Yes. Okay, so we had a special needs dog that was deaf.
Right.
And how did that come about that he went to Cincinnati?
It came about through us working with, I think in this case, we have volunteers and staff who work with the network of rescue groups of all over the country. And there are special needs groups around, and this one kind of had a specialty for deaf dogs, and I think this one was a yellow lab, and we just networked with them, and they had most of these people use foster homes. They have a network of foster homes, and I guess they had an opening, and we arranged to actually one of our animal control officers drove to I think the meeting place was Cincinnati, so I don't know where they
halfway point, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's what they did. I'm not sure, but that's not uncommon. And some of our volunteers help transport dogs when we're taking them to a rescue group, and maybe they're on their way to Maine, for example. We seem to send a lot of dogs to Maine, and you have to get them there.
Right.
So it's usually done just through volunteers, a network of volunteers up and down the East Coast that kind of drive so far, hand them off to the next group, and
there are passionate pet people all over the country.
Absolutely.
And they can pull off transporting by airplane, by car. They can, I've seen them. I'll go from here to Memphis. If you pick it up in Memphis, they'll take it to Arkansas, and Arkansas takes it to Kansas. It's amazing. And what the lengths that people will go to for one animal to be in the right place with the right family. Now, we talked about senior dogs and dogs with special needs going to other homes across the country, but we've recently started something called FOSPICE, F-O-S-P-I-C-E, and that's a combination of fostering and hospice for animals.
Correct.
That's at our shelter. What is the FOSPICE program? What animals would fall into that category, and what would a person do to participate?
Sometimes an animal, a dog or a cat, might come into our shelter and be surrendered for whatever reason, or it just, it becomes our responsibility. It comes into the shelter. And the dog is, frankly, near the end of its life. Maybe there's some terminal medical condition. Maybe it's just, really old. And our veterinarian has assessed that it would really be best that this animal not spend a lot of time in the cages. So anyway, we've got, if someone is willing to take such a dog or cat into their home and let it live out its remaining days in relative comfort, we just feel like that's a heck of a lot more humane than, euthanizing it, for example. I mean, we want to extend its life and have it a good quality of life, and we'll provide, all the medical care. Now, this is not something that's going to be widely used. The director and the veterinarian will make the assessment of the animal. They'll make the decision on
And it's a very unique person that understands they're dealing with an end-of-life situation and understands their role. So if anybody's interested in hospice, I hope they'll call the shelter and talk to them. And if they're interested in volunteering, the place to start is our webpage, adoptwcac.org. At the top, you'll see volunteer orientation, and that'll give people the dates, which are the dog orientation is November 15th, and the cat orientation is November 17th.
Correct.
And they're usually at the shelter unless you have a huge crowd that exceeds, and then you'll email everybody. So it's important to follow the process.
We've started doing the last 3 or 4 dog orientation classes have been huge, and we've had to move them to lately we've been using the library meeting room. So yeah, just keep an eye. That information will be on our website for the November meeting.
Okay. I also want to share with our viewers today that November is going to be a busy month at Williamson County Animal Center. We will be starting the annual Subaru Share the Love contest, which is in conjunction with Darrell Waltrip Subaru in Franklin, and we're so pleased to be one of the beneficiary charities for their Subaru Share the Love program again this year. If you purchase a Subaru or lease a Subaru between November 17th and January 3rd, $250 will be donated by Subaru to our shelter. So we're excited about that. If you're in the market for that, please check with the people at Darrell Waltrip. Subaru is one of the most animal-friendly car lines in America. I also want to let people know that the shelter is open now on Sunday afternoon from noon to 4 p.m. through the end of the year. We will be closed on Friday, November 11th for Veterans Day and Thursday, November 24th for Thanksgiving. However, we will be open on Black Friday and Saturday weekend. That's November 25th and 26th, which we will have special fees on our black animals. We've had a huge response to this the last 2 years, so we're doing it again. That's November 25th and 26th from 11 to 3. And many of you may be starting your holiday shopping online. It's such a huge trend now. I think more people are shopping online than are actually going out to the stores. If you go to adoptashelter.org and select the Williamson County Animal Center and then do your shopping with over 500 retailers that are listed there, we actually receive a donation from each of those who are participating in that program. And I think you'll find there every possible retailer that you would want to purchase anything from. So remember that when you're online, start with adoptashelter.org and then do your shopping, and we would appreciate it because we would benefit from that. I want to thank Mark, who is our Community Relations and Volunteer Coordinator. Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot.
I think our community is very responsive to helping the shelter, and volunteering is a great way to do that. We are located at 106 Claude Yates Drive, right next to Franklin High School. Don't let the construction on Hillsborough Road stop you. We are back there. We are open Monday through Friday for intake from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and adoptions Monday through Friday from 10 to 6, Saturday 11 to 3, and Sundays from noon to 4. So stop by and see us or like us on Facebook. It's a great way to keep up with events and hear some wonderful stories about pets being adopted. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time on Pet Watch.
If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Bricks. Sturdy, heavy, hard, smooth, rough, narrow, wide, ignored as ordinary, yet formed with ancient skills. Bricks offer security without aggression. White to black, rose to cream to gray, touches of purple, magenta, vermilion. The history and moods of Earth are revealed by their presence. Used for strength, yet brittle, bricks shed chips when tumbled, but last centuries stacked tightly. They stand steady, offer the pleasures of earth, a sense of time, rarely intrude, Simply wait for the observer's eye.